is, you can't do epic expletive with basic people. His tagline to that was top of the week, and this is how I'm feeling, 100%. Again, that's just an Instagram post. It's how he's feeling. Stephen A., we all know what's going on in Washington, D.C. We know about the drama. We know about RG3, Colt McCoy, the battle for someone who's going to be under center, whether it'll be him or Colt McCoy. What do you feel about this Instagram post? What do you make of his comment?
Well, I have no, I don't really have a problem with DeSean Jackson's Instagram post because it's all an interpretation. It's just on the outside looking in, but we have a right to look at the facts and say 1 + 1 = 2. And I think that that's apropos in this particular situation. Neither of us are beat writers for the Washington Redskins. We have to defer to those people who are inside the locker rooms covering this team every day. We have to take those things into consideration and understand, where they're coming from. They're a very frustrated bunch. They're at 3-7 right now. This team has 5-11 written all over it. You got San Francisco coming up, and St. Louis, and Indianapolis, and the Cowboys, and the Eagles, and the Rams.
5?
I mean,
I don't know.
You don't think they can get 2?
I think you see the glass
It could be
half
5-11. It could be 4-12. This is another disastrous season, and I think it's getting to the point where I think I need to go out on a limb and say this, Skip Bayless. I think it's getting to a point where I believe in RG3's talent. I don't think he's been the same since his rookie year. I think he's been a shell of himself, but I think it's been primarily due to health. But when you listen to some of the things that he says, and the people, I have loved ones and relatives in the Washington area, they've lost all faith in him.
Yep.
And when you you see this Instagram post from DeSean Jackson, I'm not going to sit there and say for sure, as well as I know DeSean Jackson, I have not spoken to him directly about this.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And I don't think he's taking a direct shot at RG3, but I think his comments are indicative of a swelling level of frustration that's going to enforce change. And I think that RG3's days in Washington may be numbered. And I think he should want it to be numbered because I'm getting to a point where I'm thinking this may not be the place for RG3. Now, before I go any further, let me listen to where I'm getting this from, Skip. Listen to RG3's comments. Knowing the Instagram post that we just showed from DeSean Jackson, this is in the aftermath of the sound from RG3 yesterday following the game. Skip, take a look at this.
It doesn't take one guy. That's proven. You know, if you want to look at the good teams in this league or the great quarterbacks, the Peytons, the Aaron Rodgers, those guys don't play well if their guys don't play well. They don't. We need everybody. I need every one of those guys in that locker room.
Back to you.
If you are a guy inside that locker room, I believe every word that RG3 just uttered was absolutely correct. But it's coming from RG3, who has struggled over the last 2 years, Skip. And you're mentioning a guy like Peyton Manning, which is going to provoke somebody saying, you ain't Peyton Manning. Who do you think you are mentioning that guy's name? And then when you say, I need everybody in that locker room to play well, they're going to be like, well, hell, we need you to play well. Because usually with those dudes that you mentioned, their playing well facilitates us playing well. It's not the other way around. So it's almost like he was saying, well, I need those guys to play well in order to help me look good when those guys or anybody that plays football on the offensive side of the ball will tell you you need the quarterback to play well to make other guys look well.
Well, Stephen A., you said you haven't talked to DeSean Jackson, but let me ask you this. When he was on his bye week, he was on that Fox supporting RG3.
Well, he's always going to support RG3 to some degree because first of all, DeSean Jackson likes RG3. That much I know. I've known DeSean Jackson for years. He does like RG3. He was excited about going to the nation's capital to play with RG3. But at the same time, DeSean Jackson gets easily frustrated. That's number one. And number two, and more importantly, when you see everybody pointing the fingers in different directions, you know, you're going to look at it and you're going to stand up for yourself. DeSean Jackson is not one that's going to sit back quietly. He's on par for another 1,000+ yard season. He's been balling, even though yesterday that wasn't the case. But he is not going to sit idly by and even give remotely the impression that the finger deserves to be pointed in his direction when he feels otherwise. And it doesn't matter whether it's RG3 or anybody else. But in the end, it's about RG3. It's about the Redskins and how they're looking. That defense looks horrid. And, oh, by the way, no disrespect, Skip, Jay Gruden, I don't know whether he can be a head coach or not. I'm not saying he can't. But there's nothing that I've seen about him that's remotely inspiring. That needs to be said.
I preface my comments on a quarterback I have long supported since before he was drafted into the National Football League with the fact that I was hoping, after I saw those comments last night on SportsCenter, the ones you just showed, I was hoping we would not talk about Robert Griffin III on this show.
Right.
If you noticed, I did not bring it up in our pre-show meeting today because I'm done with it. And I'm now fearing that not only is Robert going to play his way out of Washington, D.C., I think he's about to talk his way out of Washington, D.C. He started out correctly. We didn't see that. His opening remarks were, "It's on me." Yeah. I'm paraphrasing slightly, but it's on me. Right. He did throw 2 picks. He took 6 sacks in that game. A lot of it because he's just deer in headlights. He has lost his way. He lost all confidence in his surgically repaired knee, which means he has no more confidence in his legs, which means he's losing confidence in his arm and his ability to read defenses under a new head coach and in a new system. But I'm not defending him 1 ounce today, because then he segued, because he's such a spoiled brat. He's spoiled by the D.C. idolatry of its quarterbacks, and he's spoiled by an owner who has pampered him like a son for a couple of years now, 3 years. And he can't help himself when he's in front of a camera, because he's not going to accept the blame. He's going to throw them under the bus, and then him, and then him, and then everybody. Everybody goes under the bus, because I'll agree I belong under the bus too, but everybody's going with me under the bus. It's sad. Wow. It's sickening. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear Peyton Manning. They don't even, as bad as Drew Brees has been, they don't want to hear Drew Brees in the same sentence with Robert Griffin III. They just lost to Tampa Bay at home, and it wasn't even close. And even though Robert put up some, they weren't pathetic numbers. What was 23 of 30? What was it? 23 of 30?
Yes.
23 of 32. It's only for 207. But he got sacked 6 times. He threw 2 picks. And they weren't really competitive in a game that the new head coach called like the first preseason game. Really? Yeah. We're this deep in the year, and it's like the first preseason. I'm pretty sure the head coach is not very sold on the franchise quarterback. And remember what he said the other day, the franchise quarterback? He couldn't help himself. Remember, was it Thursday that he talked in front of the media and said, you know, I don't have friends in high places like some people.
Yeah.
I just don't.
What? Well, let's take a moment, because you have defended him for years on this show.
Have I?
And for you to call him a spoiled brat?
Spoiled brat. He's been sucked under by the idolatry. No franchise in any city, and I've spent a lot of time, I've been to a lot of Redskin games, and you got friends there and relatives there. It's still really, I know the Wizards there and the Nationals have started to take hold, but it's still the game in D.C.
No question.
Is the Washington Redskins. And the quarterback, ask Joe Theismann, they are idolized to a fault, and they can lose, you know, they can get swept up in it, and I think Robert got swept up in who he thought he was.
We both know, you know, the head of communications for the Redskins, Tony Wiley. We go back a very, very long ways. And
I go back with him to the Dallas Cowboys.
Look, man, this dude is one of the best in the business at what he does. That's why Daniel Snyder hired him. He's simply one of the best. You know, he's tried to shield Robert Griffin III and what have you. But I'll tell you this much. They've all made a mistake. I'm calling everybody out, because here's the problem. RG3 was allowed to run away and hide after last season. And the fact of the matter is, when the football games are going on and you are devoid, you know, you have to put yourself rather in that lion's den when week after week after week you got to come out and talk, but you go into hiding once the season ends because you're thinking the stuff that's non-football related, but that ultimately affects the football team inside that locker room. You think you get to hide and avoid those things? That's where RG3 really, really hurt himself, because they didn't put forth a concerted effort to go about the business of addressing the character questions about this guy. So it lingered throughout the entire offseason. Then you acquired DeSean Jackson, and then all was supposed to be well. You got a new coach. You got a new elite wide receiver in DeSean Jackson to pair with Pierre Garçon, even though this kid Jordan goes down. Niles Paul steps in, does an admirable job. You know Alfred Morris is a stud behind the backfield. The fact is, coming out of the backfield running the football for you, there's no question. So you might have some questions about the offensive line, but Skip, I'm going to say something that some people might deem incredibly controversial, but I don't. I'm not saying that people don't try to do their jobs, but if you don't have an insatiable appetite to protect somebody because you got love for them.
I'm with you.
Are you going to do your job at that elite level?
I agree.
He got sacked 6 times last night. We've seen him get knocked down, Terry, Skip, and people don't even help him up.
Yeah.
And what was the ESPN report that Robert knocked down?
That's right.
That everybody in the locker room, it sounded like mutiny, didn't it?
And Gruden knocked all of that down.
Yep.
But you know what? Turns out it looks very, very true.
It looks true to me.
Absolutely.
Point of balance, and make sure we just point this out. RG3 did say, I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I'm saying I can do better. I have to be better. He also said that it was on him. He just was bad ball out there. He was not looking good, could not see the field. We want to make sure that he took, we're just putting it out there just so that it's on balance because we didn't get to play the full sound.
That's true, but a quarterback can't sit there and say, other great quarterbacks, we need everybody to play well. Not then.
And then talk about Peyton Manning and Drew Brees.
You can't
do that
do
in the
that.
same sentence?
No.
All right,
You can't
guys.
do that.
Let's